Well, hey everyone, Athena Dean Holtz here, and welcome to the Redeemed and Restored broadcast on my YouTube channel, where we connect every Friday so that together we can intentionally discover the faithfulness of God. So today's episode of Redeemed and Restored is entitled Looking for Lessons. I have to say, a great part of my healing came when I got to the place of taking responsibility for the choices that I had made and recognizing how God used some of my worst decisions to redeem and restore me in ways I could not have imagined. I didn't just ask it once, Lord, what was wrong with me that I could have been so blind and could have believed a lie was the truth, willing to sacrifice everything that meant anything to me? That's like crazy. I kept asking him to show me more. What can I learn? What are the right questions to ask? How did I enable someone else's bad behavior? Why did I avoid a hard conversation? Where did I think I would end up? Who was I actually trying to please? Asking questions is such a healthy process, with a heart of humility, desirous of making the most of an opportunity to grow and change, rather than place the blame on others. Rather than demanding that God answer the age-old question, why me? I could ask, Lord, what are you trying to teach me? Or how can I grow from this? He loves to give us that kind of insight because he is a good Father who has predestined us to be conformed to the image and the likeness of Christ. Sometimes those moments in the potter's hands hurt terribly. But once we're on the other side, it's almost like having a baby. We never want to go there again when we're in labor, but once the baby is in our arms, we admit the pain was well worth doing it all over again. May he continue to work all things together for good in our lives as we grow up in him. So hey, I'm filming this intro on our front porch because it's a sunny day here in Washington. I think we are finally seeing some spring, even though we are already into May. So hey, you know the drill. Be sure to like, follow, share, comment, and click on one of the notification bells somewhere on this page. Maybe even start a conversation under the discussion tab. So hey, let's get started. Well, hey everyone, Athena Dean Holtz here for this week's edition of Redeemed and Restored. Today's segment is titled Looking for Lessons. And as much as God was redeeming and restoring me in marriage and business, I still struggled with my ability to mother well. When my kids were growing up, I was a total workaholic, and I abdicated my mothering to Chuck. Since I was the breadwinner, I justified it in my mind, but I was never really present for them as they were growing up. So Mother's Days are always hard for me. Even though God redeemed my relationship with my mom, I didn't really have many good memories about our mother-daughter relationship. I also had many regrets over the way I neglected my own kids as they were growing up, as I was constantly distracted with work. One time when Ross was preaching on Mother's Day, I had to admit to myself that she really did make a sacrifice to mother me. Our relationship was strained at best, but I was not an easy child, and I pushed her to her limits. I really could honestly honor the sacrifice she made for me. And I could forgive myself for my failures as a mother. I could own my part of the catastrophes I found myself in the middle of because I worked so hard to self-medicate with work. I began to see myself clearly and didn't try to blame anyone else. The sayings of my days became, Lord, what are you trying to teach me? I began to see how God was leading me through correction, which turned into Him teaching me through instruction. Romans 8:28 became like a beacon in ways I'd never seen it before. Before me was all sorts of good and growth that He was bringing out of hardship. 13 years of hardship. It seemed like everything I saw as we motored the sailboat around Commencement Bay spoke to me of God's redeeming love. I remember so often during my time in exile, I would have a wonderful prayer time in the morning, but then I would go through the day without ever asking for God's help, thanking Him for His goodness, or praying and worshiping throughout the day, and just remembering what a good Father that He is. Now it was like I saw Him everywhere and in everything. I remember once sailing by this large rusty barge that was full of twisted and rusted metal. The unruly piles spoke of their ugliness and declared their unworthiness as they were on their way to be disposed of. I thought about how that is just like us, a twisted, nasty, sinful mess that Jesus came to die for, and His death was what wiped away all of the rust and unruliness. Another time we pulled the boat into a slip at Arabella's marina in Gig Harbor, and I'd figured we were in for a perfect spot to just relax when a boat one dock over had to be fixed and its owner had the noisy motor running for hours. I got to a point of grumbling because it was not nice and quiet, and suddenly I felt the Lord convict me. Here I was on the water being restored, and I have to complain in my heart about someone else making a little noise? Really? I repented for being so selfish and asked God to show me something to rejoice about. He immediately showed me birds nearby, some children giggling on another boat close by, and Mount Rainier was in full view, and it was stunning. One other time, I just sat on the boat and watched the sunshine dance on the water, reflecting in a way that nourished my soul. It wasn't long before the sun began to go down, and the sky was alive with purples and reds and orange streaks. A few hours later, as darkness blanketed the sky, I watched as the moonlight reflected on the water. So much beauty on display for me to acknowledge His faithfulness. Just that much of an attitude adjustment was all I needed. Looking up at His goodness rather than around me with a critical eye, that was all it took. At the same time, God continued to provide me clarity on His character. He was not an evil taskmaster waiting for me to mess up so He could whack me and take back His salvation. He was a loving Father who wanted me to know how much He adored me. And yes, it was His kindness that led me to repentance. This habit of looking for lessons has become a creed for my life. There is so much we can learn if we are seeking understanding and wisdom from Him. He won't waste any of our challenges and struggles if we are focused on His sovereignty and sure of His love for us individually. So hey, thanks for joining me today. I would appreciate it if you would like, follow, share, comment on the episode, maybe make a comment in the discussions tab. I'd love to hear how God is working in your life. My name is Athena Dean Holtz, and this is Redeemed and Restored. Hey, so thanks for joining us today on the Redeemed and Restored video broadcast, brought to you by me, Athena Dean Holtz, who happens to be a horse lover, and the Romans 828 bookstore, which is a division of Redemption Press, which is right down the street that way, around the corner, right here in downtown Enumclaw, where everything is happening. So I would love to have you review and share this broadcast with friends, family, and others who could use the encouragement. And if you know someone who might prefer the audio podcast version of today's episode, you can go over to redeemedandrestoredpodcast.com and share a link from there. So thank you so much for joining me today. See you next week right here on YouTube for another episode of Redeemed and Restored.